Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Wednesday, December 17th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. In light of growing immigration raids this year, the Catholic Church has been vocal in its support of immigrants.
If someone is detained, we're here to be of service to them, to their children, their families.
Coming up, we'll speak with the bishop from the Catholic Diocese of Fresno about where he stands. But first, these headlines. Union leaders and residents plan to protest a Fresno City Council meeting this week. They're opposing a plan that would add thousands of acres to the edge of the city. It's being proposed under what's known as the Southeast Development Area Specific Plan, or SADA. Residents have clashed with the city on the issue for months. Opponents say they don't want the city to continue sprawling and instead want the city to invest in existing infrastructure. Former Valley Congressman T.J. Cox has been sentenced to a year in prison. That's after he pleaded guilty to wire fraud. Cox, a Democrat, was elected to Congress in 2018 in one of the closest races in the country. He served only one term before Republican David Valadao regained the seat. Cox will turn himself in May. The federal government is expected to announce later this month which states will receive new health care funding. KVPR's Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado reports that the funding will help states weather recent cuts to Medicaid.
When the federal government passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act earlier this year, it included cuts to Medicaid. The cuts put states with high enrollment in the government health insurance on shaky ground. But the bill also established the so-called Rural Health Transformation Fund. The fund is aimed at offsetting just some of the funding that was cut from Medicaid. Many rural hospitals and clinics rely on Medicaid reimbursements to keep operating. The federal government will distribute $10 billion for 5 years to selected states, and all 50 states applied for funding. The temporary health fund has been met with skepticism since it doesn't totally replace the Medicaid funding that was lost, and healthcare is expected to be a top political issue during the 2026 midterms. For KVPR News, I'm Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado.
Meanwhile, Governor Gavin Newsom, alongside state health officials, announced a new information exchange for public health on Monday. Officials say the goal of the new Public Health Network Innovation Exchange is to boost innovation and communicate public health guidance. Newsom hired 2 former CDC officials to head the program. Both left the CDC after criticizing the Trump administration for eroding the nation's faith in science. The governor also acknowledged that California is reevaluating its COVID-era guidelines, which some criticized as too restrictive, especially for schools and businesses.
We've been going through a process, and we're very shortly going to be presenting it, really looking and stress testing at what we did right and what we did wrong during COVID. And I think that's how you rebuild trust.
Newsom faced strong backlash from some Californians for lockdown mandates during the pandemic. He didn't give a timeline for releasing a review of the COVID policies. The Fresno City and County Historical Society says it solved a mystery surrounding antique lanterns found earlier this year in a city underpass. High-speed rail contractors uncovered nearly 7 dozen intricately carved lanterns in June, and no one seemed to know how they got there. The Historical Society says it has found a photo from 1929 that shows the lanterns in operation. The Historical Society will hold a public viewing of the photograph and will explain the results of its investigation on Friday at the Archive Building in downtown Fresno.
2025. It's been a relatively quiet year, right? Well, not exactly, especially here in public radio. Thankfully, it's December and KVPR is still here, still serving the Valley with news and information you can trust. We may have been defunded, but we're not defeated. You can keep programs like this one on the air for 2026 with your year-end donation. Give now at kvpr.org. Thanks and happy holidays.
And now to our main story. every fall, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops gathers for their plenary assembly, or General Convention. At their session in Baltimore in November, the bishops made a relatively rare decision. For the first time in 12 years, they issued what's called a special message, which has to be approved by a vote before being released. And in that statement, the bishops expressed concern about the country's treatment of immigrants. They said they're disturbed by the current climate of fear and anxiety in the U.S. and saddened by the vilification of immigrants. Bishop Joseph Brennan of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fresno was among the many bishops who cast his vote in favor of the statement. His diocese covers more than 35,000 square miles and serves more than 1 million Catholics. Bishop Brennan came to the KVPR studios to discuss this statement from the bishops, and I start the conversation by asking him if local Catholics have been personally affected by the current administration's crackdown on immigration.
They are being impacted, and we've had a few traditional events, including this past week with Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is huge in our Mexican population. So we noticed in a few of our parishes a diminution of participation, people still a little nervous about going out because we advertise these, and we publicize them, and it's, we're not meeting. We're meeting behind closed doors. We do close the doors of the church because it's cold outside. But you know what I mean? It's not not private. It's not secret. And in that sense, it's public, and there's some vulnerability there that people are feeling.
Yeah, there have been a lot of reports of folks just nervous to leave their homes. The immigration enforcement actions have really taken a turn this year in the sense that we've seen and heard reports of racial profiling that's bound to impact Mexican and Latin American communities, like we said, one of the primary groups in the Valley and probably specifically among the Catholic faith. So what's the role of the Diocese of Fresno in this current political climate that we find ourselves in?
Well, a major role is, and it sounds nebulous, but it's really important, is accompaniment. It is being with the people, letting them know we're here for them. We're here to help. We're here to support. If someone is detained, we're here to be of service to them, to their children, their families. We have the ways and the means to do that just from our parish standpoint. We have 87 locations that are willing and able to help because we have people who are vulnerable in every one of those locations. There are families, there are children with moms and dads that may not be documented and so are at risk. So we're there.
And faith is certainly something people cling to in trying times. I'm curious how this has influenced your role as bishop, sort of responsible for such a vast amount of people, and just, I would think in your role, sort of leading by example in terms of,
Well, of course, it's being a spokesman for all of that and a spokesman for all of them. Now, they have their own voice, but sometimes they can't voice it because it is that running of a kind of a risk for them. I don't have that risk, so I can, take some liberties with that and do something like this, like what we're doing right here at this very moment. So, yes, it goes beyond accompaniment to real advocacy and sometimes, whenever possible, intervention or direct help, for example, through our Catholic Charities Immigration Service and just our own pastors, my priests and my deacons, the clergy. They're pretty incredible. And you know what? A number of them started out undocumented. They're documented now. Just want to, in case somebody's listening.
Yeah, sure.
But started out undocumented and are just phenomenal, incredible ministers to the people, serving the people, serving on the outlying areas, underserved areas, and phenomenal workers for these people.
In November, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops gathered and issued this statement, specifically expressing concern for immigrants in the U.S. And in the statement, you and over 200 U.S. Catholic bishops said they, quote, oppose the indiscriminate mass deportation of people, adding that, quote, we pray for an end to dehumanizing rhetoric and violence, whether directed at immigrants or at law enforcement. That statement just really kind of toes that line between the rule of law, but also showing compassion for groups caught up in this enforcement. I'd just love if you could break down for us what that stance really means.
Well, precisely because this issue is not only a legal issue. It's a moral issue. It's a human issue. So the rights and the privileges and the dignity of everyone involved. That's why it's an extraordinary little statement. And that, just a little inside baseball, that particular statement, I'm glad you quoted it, because that was not a bone of contention, but it was tweaked at essentially the 11th hour in a beautiful way. Yeah. And I think it was to not demonize anyone in this, because we, with our own proclivities, our own belief systems, our own ideologies, we tend to do that, and we're human. We're entitled to our humanity, but our humanity sometimes gets in the way of solutions and really helping people. So I loved this statement that demonized neither, certainly the undocumented, but neither, some of these men and women who are being tasked with being in sweeps and being part of what appears to be mass deportation or attempts to do that. So yeah, we're opposed to mass deportation. Not all deportation. There are times when it's morally acceptable and, in fact, even necessary for, some bad elements that are dangerous to themselves, to others, and to the society at large.
Realistically, in your line of work, if an immigration officer comes knocking at a church door and there's someone without legal status, what is the responsibility of the church?
Well, I think the responsibility of the church is to politely ask them not to enter the church, because it is a special place. We would call it sacred space. We would call it traditionally, centuries-long tradition of sanctuary. There's literally a sanctuary in every single church where the liturgical action is centered and focused. But in a sense, the whole church itself is a sanctuary for those who are, and it ought not to be violated. They can present a warrant. We can encourage the person who's being sought to please cooperate, collaborate, but we're not going to allow them to interfere with that sacred space.
Would a church, I'm just wondering in this hypothetical, would a church even really know someone's legal status necessarily?
No, we never ask that. We never insist on it. You don't even have to be a card-carrying Catholic to come through the doors. You just come in.
Not all Christian faith leaders have been as outspoken on immigration actions by the Trump administration. What is it about the Catholic Christian faith that makes immigration just such a central issue?
Well, I think it's our Christian anthropology, who we are, sons and daughters of a God who loves us. And the core of really the dignity of the human person that you see woven throughout Catholic social teaching. And it's scriptural based, which we share with our brothers and sisters, but we don't always share the same take on issues like this. But it's born from our Catholic social teaching based on scripture, based on tradition. And it's our nature, Christian anthropology, and the emphasis on the dignity of the human person and the fundamental option for the poor.
Before I let you go, Bishop, we're about to enter a new year, and in your role as Bishop of the Diocese of Fresno, I'm curious what will be some of your top priorities and kind of what you're looking forward to and just anticipating for the Catholic community in the Fresno Diocese.
Well, there's so much, honestly, going on, but I anticipate really a deepening care and concern for the people who are in most need. We have a marvelous Catholic Charities function in this diocese. We have service organizations in every single one of our parishes, and I really anticipate everyone kind of ramping up to literally take care of one another in an even bigger way this year than we have in the past.
Bishop Joseph Brennan of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fresno, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And that is today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
How does AI even work? Where does creativity come from? What's the secret to living longer? TED Radio Hour explores the biggest questions with some of the world's greatest thinkers. They will surprise, challenge, and even change you. Listen to NPR's TED Radio Hour wherever you get your podcasts.